Description and aerial image of an 18-lane freeway. The freeway is divided into four separate set of lanes, known as carriageways. Looking east at the widest segment of Highway 401, which is near Toronto Pearson International Airport. In the foreground is the interchange with Dixie Road. Highway 401 extends across southwestern, central, and eastern Ontario. In anticipation of the future expansion of the highway, the Transportation Ministry purchased a 91.4-meter wide 300 feet right-of-way along the entire length. Generally, the highway occupies only a portion of this allotment. 10. It is one of the world's busiest highways. 6. A 2019 analysis stated the annual average daily traffic AADT count between Renforth Drive and Highway 427 in Toronto was at 450,300. While a second study estimates that over 500,000 vehicles travel that section on some days. 5. This makes it North America's busiest roadway, surpassing the Santa Monica Freeway in Los Angeles and I-75 in Atlanta. 7-Eleven. The just-in-time auto parts delivery systems of the highly integrated automotive industry of Michigan and Ontario have contributed to the highway's status as the world's busiest truck route. 12. Carrying 60% of vehicular trade between Canada and the U.S. 7. Highway 401 also features North America's busiest multi-structure bridge at Hoggs Hollow in Toronto. 12. The four bridges, two for each direction with the collector and express lanes, carried an average of 360,300 vehicles daily in 2019. 1. The highway is one of the major backbones of a network in the Great Lakes region, connecting the populous Quebec City-Windsor corridor with Michigan, New York, and central Ontario's cottage country. 13. It is the principal connection between Toronto and Montreal, becoming Auto Route 20 at the Ontario-Quebec border. 14. Southwestern Ontario. Highway 401 does not yet extend across the Detroit River into Detroit. 15. By September 2025, the Gordie Howe International Bridge will extend Highway 401 across the Canada-United States border to a connection through Delray to Interstate 75 in Michigan. 16. At present, Highway 401 begins as a 6-lane freeway in Brighton Beach at the Canada-US border in Windsor at the west end of the EC Row Expressway, sandwiched between the EC Row's opposing carriageways for a short distance. Highway 401 then changes to a southeast direction as it descends into a trench and runs alongside Highway 3, Huron Church Road, and Talbot Road. This below-grade section of the highway has 11 tunnels to cross underneath surface streets, including those carrying the Highway 3 routing. After passing under Howard Avenue and the ramps to Talbot Road, the highway then curves northeast and ascends back to the surface. At the split with Dougal Parkway, former Highway 3B, which links to the Detroit-Windsor Tunnel, the highway turns east and exits Windsor. 17. From here, Highway 401 mostly parallels the former route of Highway 98 from Windsor to Tilbury. 18. Highway 401 looking west at Split with Highway 400 to in London. Southwestern Ontario is flat, primarily agricultural land that takes advantage of the fertile clay soil deposited throughout the region. 1920. The main river through the region is the Thames River, which drains the second largest watershed in southern Ontario and largely influences the land use surrounding the highway. 21. It parallels the route to the north between Tilbury and Woodstock. 17. Near Tilbury, Highway 401 loses its tall wall median barrier and narrows to 4 lanes, following lot lines laid between concession roads in a plan designed to limit damage to the sensitive agricultural lands through which the highway runs. 22. Here the highway's flat and straight route is notorious for leading to driver inattention. 23. The section from Windsor to London, especially west of Tilbury, has become known for deadly car accidents and pileups, earning it the nickname Carnage Alley. 24. As the highway approaches London, Highway 400 merges in, 17 resulting in a 6-lane cross-section. 25. 26 within London, it intersects the city's to municipal expressways. Highbury Avenue and the Veterans Memorial Parkway. 27. The section between London and Woodstock generally parallels the former Highway 2, but lies on the south side of the Thames River. 17. This area is not as flat, but the highway is generally straight. This part of Highway 401 often experiences heavy snow squalls in early winter, sometimes extending as far east as Toronto. To the south of Woodstock, Highway 401 curves northeast as Highway 403 splits off. 27. The freeway then meets the former Highway 2 at an interchange, reconfigured from a cloverleaf to a 5-ramp parklow in the late 2000s, near the Toyota West plant. From here the highway heads towards Kitchener and Cambridge, substantially north of the route of the former Highway 2, which has been bypassed by Highway 403's western leg. Heading towards Kitchener, the highway ascends as it crosses the Grand River, followed by interchanges with King Street, Waterloo Regional Road 8, and Highway 8, before returning to its eastward-oriented IN 1728 between Highway, Regional Road 8, and Highway, Regional Road 24 in Cambridge. The highway was widened in 2020 to 12 lanes to accommodate the growing traffic using that segment. 2930-31. Beyond Highway, Regional Road 24, the highway returns to a 6-lane cross-section and meanders towards Milton, passing through hills and rock cuts along the way. 30 to Highway 401 eastbound express lanes at Weston Road. This section has a volume of over 500,000 vehicles per day during the summer months. Greater Toronto or EZ also. Local Express Lenesis Highway 401 approaches the Greater Toronto Area GTA from the west. It rounds Rattlesnake Point, part of the ecologically protected Niagara Escarpment, to the west of Milton. 3334. Upon entering the town, it enters the first urbanized section of the GTA, passing through to rural areas between there and Oshawa. 1735. Part of this rural gap is the western side of Toronto's Greenbelt, a zone around Toronto protected from development. 33. After this 10 kilometers, 6.2 miles gap, the highway interchanges with the Highway 407 express toll route. Within the GTA, the highway passes several major shopping malls, including Toronto Premium Outlets, Yorkdale Shopping Centre, Scarborough Town Centre, and Pickering Town Centre. 36, 37, 38 different colors are used on the signs on Highway 401's Collector Express system. 2. Avoid confusion. The express lanes use green signs and the collector lanes use blue. Within the GTA, 3 separate segments of Highway 401 employ a Collector Express system, a concept inspired by the Dan Ryan Expressway in Chicago. 3910. The system divides each direction of travel into segregated collector and express lanes, 40 giving the highway a wide span and for carriageways. Unlike the collector lanes, which provide access to every interchange, the express lanes only provide direct access to a select few interchanges. Access between the two is provided by transfers, which are strategically placed to prevent disruptions caused by closely spaced interchanges. 41. To avoid confusion between carriageways. Blue signs are used for the collector lanes and green signs for the express lanes. The overall purpose of the Collector Express system is to maximize traffic flow for both local and long-distance traffic. From the west, the first Collector Express section through the GTA is for 0.6 kilometers to 0.9 miles long and runs from James Snow Parkway to Highway 407. Beyond Highway 407, the freeway briefly narrows to 10 lanes east to Winston Churchill Boulevard, where the second section begins and runs 16.7 kilometers, 10.4 miles, to Highway 427. The west end of this section initially terminated just west of Highway 410 in the early 1990s. It was extended westward in stages during the 2010s to include the interchanges with Hurontario Street, Mavis Road, and Mississauga Road, with the final extension to Winston Churchill being completed in 2022. 42. The east end of this section, running south of Toronto Pearson International Airport, reaches the highway's widest point at 18 lanes. 7 approaching the city of Toronto's western border. A final transfer allows eastbound traffic in the collector lanes to transfer to the 401 Express, lanes which continue past Highway 427 as the single 401 carriageway. The 401 collector lanes then become ramps to Highway 427 after a final exit at Renforth Drive. For westbound traffic, the 401 single westbound carriageway becomes the Highway's express lanes. The exit ramps from Highway 427 merge to form the start of Highway 401's westbound collectors lanes in this section. This system was originally designed to accommodate and organize various traffic movements from the Highway 403 410ths and Highway 427 interchanges along Highway 401, replacing an earlier plan that would have run Highway 403 directly to Eglinton Avenue and the never-built Richview Expressway. 43 east of Highway 427. The single carriageway of Highway 401 curves northeast and follows a power transmission corridor to the east end of Highway 409, where the highways merge and the 401 returns to its east-west route through Toronto. This is also the west end of the third and longest express collector segment, 43.7 kilometers, 27.2 miles, which crosses the rest of the city to Brock Road and Pickering in the east. 40 for the 5 kilometers, 3.1 miles, gap with no express. Collector split between Highways 427 and 409 is a traffic bottleneck, since the space constraints of the existing flyovers at the 401 to 427 interchange also limit the width of the 401 in this section to 8 lanes, widened from the original 6. 11 Highway 401 is often congested in this section, with an average of 440 2,900 vehicles passing between Weston Road and Highway 400 per day as of 2008, just east of the 401 to 409 merger. In spite of this congestion, it is the primary commuting route in Toronto, and over 50% of vehicles bound for downtown Toronto use the Highway 45. East of Highway 400 is a set of transfer ramps between the express and collectors lanes nicknamed the Basket Weave, as each direction has a pair of ramps that cross over and under each other. 39 near Yorkdale Shopping Center. 12 lanes pass beneath a complicated interchange with Allen Road. Further east, the highway crosses Hogs Hollow over the West Don River on what is the busiest multi-span bridge crossing in North America. Citation needed, followed immediately by an interchange with Yonge Street, which is also the center of Toronto. Eastward, the highway descends as it crosses Oriole Ghost Station, Leslie Street, and the East Don River in succession. It then climbs toward an interchange with the Don Valley Parkway and Highway 404, which provides access to downtown Toronto and the suburbs to the north, respectively. Between Birchmount Road and Midland Avenue, the freeway is elevated on a berm as it crosses 3 surface streets, and progressing eastward in Scarborough, the Highway 401 continues through mostly residential areas and Scarborough City Center, including the shopping mall. The highway eventually reaching the city's eastern edge, where at Meadowvale Road it turns southeast briefly before it swings northeast as Highway 2A downloaded from the province to the municipality. In 1998 merges into it, followed immediately by an interchange with Kingston Road and Port Union Road, Shepherd Avenue, then crossing the Rouge Valley into Pickering. 39 west of Pickering, Highway 401 again meets former Highway 2, which thereafter parallels it to the Ontario-Quebec border. 17. As the highway approaches Brock Road in Pickering, the collector and express lanes converge, narrowing the 14-lane cross-section to 10, divided only at the center. 46. It remains this width as it passes into Ajax. 39 before narrowing to 6 lanes at Salem Road. 47 planned expansions east of Salem to improve flow leading into the Highway 412 and Lakeridge Road interchanges will see the highway widen to 10 lanes as far as Brock Street in Whitby, where the existing interchange will be reconfigured. 48 east of Ajax, the highway passes through the second 3.5 kilometers to 0.2 miles Rural Gap and enters Whitby. The stretch of Highway 401 through Whitby and Oshawa features several structures completed during the initial construction of the highway in the 1940s. Several of these structures are to be demolished either due to their age or to prepare for the planned widening of Highway 401 through this area. 49 a former Canadian National Railway overpass, which was fenced off but commonly used by pedestrians during Highway of Heroes repatriations, was demolished on the night of June 11, 2011. A second structure in Bowmanville was demolished during two overnight closures on July 9th and 16th. 50. At Harmony Road, the suburban surroundings quickly transitioned to agricultural land. The highway curves around the south side of Bowmanville and travels towards Highway 35 and Highway 115. 35. Historic pedestrianism articles, Lakeshore Road, the Middle Road, Highway 2, and Highway 2A. A map with legend of Highway 401 color-coded by the year each section open to traffic. Way 401's history predates its designation by over 2 decades. As automobile use in southern Ontario grew in the early 20th century, road design and construction advanced significantly, following frequent erosion of Lakeshore Road, then macadamized. 60 a concrete road known as the Toronto-Hamilton Highway was proposed in January 1914. Construction began on November 8th of that year. Following the onset of World War I 61-62, the highway was designed to run along the lake shore instead of Dundas Street to the north, because the numerous hills encountered along Dundas would have increased costs without improving accessibility. Tie, Middle Road, a dirt lane named because of its position between the two, was not considered since Lakeshore and Dundas were both overcrowded and in need of serious repairs. 63. The road was formally opened on November 24, 1917, 61 5.5 meters, 18 feet wide, and nearly 60 for kilometers, 40 miles long. It was the first concrete road in Ontario, as well as one of the longest stretches of concrete road between two cities in the world. 60 for over the next decade, vehicle usage increased substantially, and by 1920, Lakeshore Road was again congested, particularly during weekends. 65. In response, the Department of Highways examined improving another road between Toronto and Hamilton. The road was to be more than twice the width of Lakeshore Road at 12 meters 39 feet and would carry 2 lanes of traffic in either direction. 66. Construction on what was then known as the Queen Street Extension, west of Toronto, began in early 1931. 67 before the highway could be completed, Thomas McQuestion was appointed the new minister of the Department of Highways, with Robert Melville Smith as deputy minister, following the 1930 for provincial elections. 11 Smith, inspired by the German Autobahn's new dual-lane divided highways, modified the design for Ontario roads. 68, and McQuestion ordered the Middle Road be converted into this new form of highway. 69 70 71. Of 40 meters, 130 feet right-of-way was purchased along the Middle Road, and construction began to convert the existing sections to a divided highway. Work also began on Canada's first interchange at Highway 10. 66 a black and white photo shows a smooth, gravel, divided roadway with a grass median. There are no safety features such as guardrails. Finished grading of the Thousand Islands Parkway Highway to Essen 1944. Beginning in 1935, McQuestion applied the concept of a dual highway to several projects along Highway 2, including along Kingston Road in Scarborough Township. 1172. When widening in Scarborough reached the Highland Creek Ravine in 1936, the Department of Highways began construction on a new bridge over the large valley, bypassing the former alignment around West Hill. 73. From here, the highway was constructed on a new alignment to Oshawa, avoiding construction on the congested Highway 2. 10. As grading and bridge construction neared completion on the new highway between West Hill and Oshawa in September 1939. World War II broke out and gradually tax revenues were reallocated from highway construction to the war. At the same time, between September 6th and 8th, 1939, the Ontario Good Roads Association Conference was held at Big Win Inn near Huntsville. 70 for drawing highway engineers from across North America to discuss the new concept of dual highways. On the first day of the convention, McQuesson announced his vision of the freeway, an uninterrupted drive through the scenic regions of Ontario, discouraging local business and local traffic from accessing the highway except at infrequent, controlled access points. 75, it was announced in the days thereafter this concept would be applied to a new Transprovincial Expressway, running from Windsor to the Ontario-Quebec border. 76, highway engineers evaluated factors such as grading, curve radius, and the narrow median used along the middle road, which was inaugurated on August 23, 1940, as the Queen Elizabeth Way QEW 77, and began to plan the course of a new dual highway mostly parallel to Highway 2, with precedence given to areas most hampered by congestion. Unlike the QEW, this highway would not be built along an existing road, but rather on a new right-of-way, avoiding the need to provide access to properties. 1175. Along with immense improvements to machinery and construction techniques over its 6-year course, the war provided planners an opportunity to conduct a survey of 375,000 drivers, asking them about their preferred route to travel to their destination. Using this information, a course was plotted from Windsor to Quebec, bypassing all towns along the way. 1078 Highway to SS for Scenic was the first completed section of new roadway, built to connect with the Thousand Islands Bridge at Ivy Lee and opened as a gravel road in late 1941 or early 1942. 79, the road followed the shore of the St. Lawrence River and connected with the western end of the twinned highway to near Brockville. 17. In addition, the highway between Highland Creek and Oshawa was opened as a gravel-surfaced road in May 1942. 80, following the war, construction resumed on roadways throughout Ontario. The expressway between Highland Creek and Oshawa was completed in December 1947 and designated as Highway to A. 10, while other sections languished. The Toronto-Barrie Highway was the primary focus of the Department of Highways at the time, and the onset of the Korean War in 1950 stalled construction again. Despite the delays, Highway Minister George Doucet officially announced the plans for construction of the new Transprovincial Expressway that year, with the Toronto to Oshawa Expressway serving as a model for the design. 11. Work on the most important link, the Toronto Bypass, began in 1951. 11, but it would not open with that name. Eastern Ontario, a 4-lane divided highway among short hills, travels into the background and curves to the right. The two divided halves are separated by a depressed swampy median. Through much of eastern Ontario, Highway 401 is a rural freeway with a grass median. From east of Highway 35 and Highway 115 to Cobourg, Highway 401 passes through a mix of agricultural land and forests, maintaining a straight course. 51. Highway 401 passes through the north end of the towns of Port Hope and Cobourg with 2 interchanges each. Just east of Cobourg, the highway narrows to 4 lanes and the terrain becomes undulating, with the highway routed around hills and through valleys along the shores of Lake Ontario. 52. At Trenton, the highway crosses the Trent Canal and returns to an agricultural setting. It then crosses the Moira River as it goes through Beauville before heading eastward to Kingston. 14. The Kingston portion of the highway, originally named the Kingston Bypass, was one of the first sections of the highway to be completed. 2. It is now mostly 3 lanes each way. 53. A look down a rather level 2-lane asphalt highway, with cars and trucks at some distance traveling in the same direction. Oncoming vehicles use the 2-lane roadway some 3 or 4 meters to the left, separated by a grassy median. Orange signs and barrels to the right indicate construction work, and farther to the right, A tall blue and white sign and flags welcome motorists to Quebec. Highway 401 ends at the Quebec border, where Auto Route 20 continues towards Montreal and the Maritime provinces. East of Kingston, the highway continues through a predominantly agricultural area alongside the St. Lawrence River to Gananoque, where it splits with the Thousand Islands Parkway. 54, one of the original sections of the highway designated in 1952. 55. The highway runs parallel to the parkway several kilometers inland from the river. The Canadian Shield, an ancient geological formation, appears through this heavily forested section of the highway. Highway 401 rejoins the Thousand Islands Parkway immediately southwest of Brockville, now heading northeast. 56. The remainder of the highway runs parallel to the former highway to along the shore of the St. Lawrence River within the St. Lawrence Valley. Northeast of Brockville is the interchange with Highway 416, which heads north to Ottawa. 57. At the Ontario-Quebec border, Highway 401 becomes Auto Route 20 and continues to Montreal. 58. Kings Highway 401, commonly referred to as Highway 401 and also known by its official name as the Macdonald-Cartier Freeway, or colloquially referred to as the 401. 3 is a controlled access 400 series highway in the Canadian province of Ontario. It stretches 828 kilometers, 514 miles from Windsor in the west to the Ontario-Quebec border in the east. The part of Highway 401 that passes through Toronto is North America's busiest highway, for 5 and one of the widest. 6-7, together with Quebec Auto Route 20. It forms the road transportation backbone of the Quebec City-Windsor corridor, along which over half of Canada's population resides. It is also a core route in the National Highway System of Canada. The route is maintained by the Ministry of Transportation of Ontario, MTO, and patrolled by the Ontario Provincial Police. The speed limit is 100 kilometers per hour, 62 miles per hour, throughout the majority of its length, with the remaining exceptions being the posted 80 kilometers per hour, 50 miles per hour limit westbound in Windsor in most construction zones, and the 110 kilometers per hour, 68 miles per hour speed limit on the 40 kilometers, 25 miles stretch between Windsor and Tilbury. That was raised on April 22, 2022, 8 to 7 kilometers per 0.3 miles. Extension east of the aforementioned, the 35 kilometers 22 miles stretch between Highway 35 115th and Cobourg, the 44 kilometers 27 miles stretch between Colborne and Beauville, the 66 kilometers 41 miles stretch between Beauville and Kingston, and the 107 kilometers 66 miles stretch between Highway 16 and the east end of the highway that were raised. On July, by the end of 1952, 3 individual highways were numbered Highway 401, the partially completed Toronto bypass between Weston Road and Highway 11 Yonge Street, Highway to A between West Hill and Newcastle, and the scenic highway between Gananoque and Brockville, now known as the Thousand Islands Parkway. These 3 sections of highway were 11.8, 50 for 0.7, and 41.2 kilometers, 7.3, 30 for 0.0, and 25.6 miles. In 1964, the route became fully navigable from Windsor to the Ontario-Quebec border. In 1965, it was given a second designation, the Macdonald-Cartier Freeway, in honor of two fathers of Confederation. At the end of 1968, the Gananoque-Brockville section was bypassed and the final intersection grade separated near Kingston, making Highway 401 a freeway for its entire 817.9 kilometers, 508.2 miles length. Since 2007, a portion of the highway between Trenton and Toronto has been designated the Highway of Heroes, as the route is traveled by funeral convoys for fallen Canadian Forces personnel from CFB Trenton to the coroner's office. Highway 401 previously ended at Highway 3 Talbot Road upon entering Windsor. In 2011, construction began on a westward extension called the RT, HUN, Herb Gray Parkway, formerly Windsor Essex Parkway.
In 5 kilometers, turn left on 15 Side Road.
Here we are.